Just trying to be the world's best X-Man. Sorry, X-person.
The character of Deadpool has brought absurd amounts of joy to the comic book world, thanks to Ryan Reynolds and the incredible team of creators, writers, and filmmakers. We've also been graced with not just one, but two excellent Deadpool movies. There are so many great behind-the-scenes stories to tell when it comes to these two films. We're willing to bet there are a number of tidbits even the biggest Deadpool movie fan might not be aware of. Luckily for you, we've taken a deep dive into Deadpool's cinematic universe to uncover some of our favorite behind-the-scenes secrets. Let's jump right in.
Don't try to chase me.
Wait!
Get ready to be touched again.
Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2 are overflowing with all kinds of Easter eggs, in-jokes, innuendos, and so much more. You could spend far too much time sitting around watching these movies back to back and exploring every little thing they have to offer. Honestly, that might not be a bad way to spend your time. In fact, we'd encourage it. Even after those in-depth, analytical viewings, you still might not be privy to all the little behind-the-scenes details about these productions. Deadpool made his first cinematic appearance in the 2009 film XMen Origins Wolverine. The film was less than popular with comic book fans, to say the least. But there was one thing everyone could agree on: Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool was an inspired casting choice. Following the release of X-Men Origins, Reynolds rallied for a true-to-its-source R-rated Deadpool film, and fans could not be more excited. But this was seen as a major risk for 20th Century Fox. After all, Deadpool wasn't a well-known character, plus making the film R-rated might prevent it from raking in the box office dough necessary to be deemed a success. Reynolds was unfazed. He continued to push for Deadpool to be made and, more importantly, for it to be true to its vulgar and explicit comic book roots. Reynolds received early support from some surprising sources. Deadpool's screenwriters Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick had famed film directors David Fincher and James Cameron on their side. Fincher and Cameron kept pushing Fox to make the film, stressing the brilliance of its screenplay and suggesting the studio had a hit on its hands. Obviously, when James Cameron tells you need to make a film, you do it. This is the guy who wrote and directed the mega hits Titanic and Avatar, after all. You just don't argue with him. Reynolds took his support for the writers a step further. When he learned the production had not set aside money in the budget for Reese and Wernick to be on set, Reynolds was flabbergasted by the decision and offered up his protests. Reynolds believed the writing team was crucial to Deadpool's success. They needed to be on set as often as possible to help with rewrites and to make the script the best it could possibly be. Reynolds held this belief so strongly, he actually paid the writers to be on set out of his own paycheck. They don't call Deadpool the Merc with a mouth for nothing. Reynolds was adamant that his kids were not allowed on set. Looking at the final product, it's not difficult to understand why. The sheer amount of F-bombs and real bombs being dropped on the daily was overwhelming. It didn't help that the first time Reynolds' 1-year-old daughter saw him in costume, she burst into tears. So much for Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. Getting Brad Pitt to cameo in your film has got to be considered a major accomplishment. I mean, this dude is one of the top stars in the world. If he takes the time to stop by your production for a short part, it's gotta be a big confidence booster. I'm sure Deadpool 2's production team were thrilled to have him, even if his appearance was brief. And wanna know the best part? Pitt's pay wasn't his standard multi-million-dollar check. Instead, it was the minimum amount of money necessary per the Screen Actors Guild regulations, plus a cup of coffee. Not too shabby, right? Obviously, Brad Pitt wasn't the only big celebrity cameo attached to Deadpool 2. Another glorious moment comes from none other than Matt Damon. And he's almost completely unrecognizable, sitting in the back of a pickup truck with Alan Tudyk discussing why toilet paper is overrated. In fact, Damon was so unrecognizable that a large number of the cast and crew didn't even realize he was the one under all those prosthetics and makeup. And it might not be a legitimate cameo, but Reynolds did find a way to give Taylor Swift a shout out in the film. Swift and Reynolds' wife Blake Lively are besties in real life. So during Deadpool's depression following the loss of his one true love Vanessa, Reynolds opted to wear a shirt with 2 kittens on it. Under the image of the kittens is the caption, "Olivia and Meredith, friends forever." Those kittens happen to be Swift's cats. After the first Deadpool film success, you'd think that Reynolds and company would have the creative freedom to do whatever they wanted, right? Well, not necessarily. This much was proved when Fox made Reynolds and the creative team cut a punchline at Disney's expense from the film's final cut. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Reynolds stated, "This is a sore spot for me because there's a joke in the movie that is not in the movie now because I'm probably not even allowed to say this, but Fox made me take it out. It had more to do with Disney and they made me take it out. As I look back at it, I think maybe that was a wise decision. So what exactly was the joke about?" Naturally, Reynolds wouldn't go into the specific details. We're willing to bet it had something to do with the Disney-Fox merger that was taking place at the time. Creative differences are a given with any film production. Typically, you find a compromise and move on with the show. In some cases, however, an agreement can't be reached, and creative teams need to be switched out. Such was the case with Deadpool's director, Tim Miller. Miller, who had helped to lead the film's first production to such great success, was originally on board to direct Deadpool 2. The only problem was that he and Reynolds clashed at every turn. They couldn't agree on the film's tone. Reynolds wanted it to be witty and fun, while Miller wanted it to be more bomb-tastic. In fact, Miller's vision was so grand in scale that Deadpool 2 was looking like it might cost 3 times as much as it had cost to make the first Deadpool. It also didn't help that Reynolds and Miller couldn't agree on who should play Cable. All this, combined with Miller's demand for a larger paycheck, resulted in his getting axed from Deadpool 2's directing chair. Instead, the production brought David Leitch of John Wick fame on board. Thankfully, everything turned out okay, and the sequel was a big success. We're all aware that Josh Brolin is a total BAMF, right? I mean, the guy was both Thanos and Cable in the same year. Is there anything he can't do? While he might have been able to get away with not being in shape for Thanos thanks to the wonders of CGI, he couldn't fake it with Cable. He worked out hard, even taking tips from Guardians of the Galaxy's Dave Bautista on the best means to bulk up. Brolin's diet consisted of chicken, salmon, veggies, and exactly 48 almonds per day. That's right, 48 almonds every day. What are you waiting for? Get to it! With 48 almonds a day, you too could be as awesome as Mr. Brolin himself. Okay, maybe not as awesome, but close. Okay, maybe not close, but you know what? Let's just get on with it, shall we?
Who are you? I'm Batman.
Deadpool 2's end credits sequence is perhaps one of the most inspired in the history of cinema. In it, Deadpool uses Cable's repaired time travel device to go back in time and fix a number of problems. He saves his girlfriend Vanessa, as well as everyone's favorite X-Force member, Peter. He also uses the opportunity to take out X-Men Origin's unsatisfying rendition of the Deadpool character, and even assassinates Ryan Reynolds while he ponders starring in the Green Lantern. There were alternate scenarios for this sequence that never ended up in the final cut, including Deadpool taking out baby Hitler, a moment which was deemed too extreme even for Deadpool. There was even a gag that featured Chris Evans reprising his Human Torch role from the Fantastic Four films. Throughout the Deadpool films, Deadpool constantly jokes about the severely limited X-Men appearances. He comments more than once on how the limited budget prevents them from having more recognizable and famous X-Men appear in the film. It should be no surprise that this actually was the case. As a result, Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead were the only X-Men that showed up. Negasonic Teenage Warhead in particular was an inspired choice. She's not exactly true to the comic book version, but we're willing to bet none of you knew the comic book character existed until the film's release. According to director Tim Miller, they wanted an X-Man with more overt, flashy powers, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead fit the bill. He said, quote, "We chose her largely for her name, because it was so cool, but we ultimately ended up changing her powers from the comics," end quote. In the marketing build-up to Deadpool 2's release, a music video featuring Celine Dion was released. The video prominently features Deadpool engaging in an elaborate dance number while Dion performs the song Ashes. We'd hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not actually Ryan Reynolds performing this dance routine. The dancer is actually Yanis Marshall, a French dancer and choreographer. Reynolds tweeted out his praise for the guy, writing, "This man is not just a dancer, he's an elite athlete, hero, and all-around hilarious person. Throw confetti at his feet when you see him. He is a gift to this weary world." And hey, speaking of elite athletes, you might recall that one of Deadpool's most delightful punchlines was at the expense of soccer player David Beckham. Deadpool comments at one point that, "Looks are everything. You ever heard David Beckham speak?" Obviously, Deadpool considered this a bit harsh, so during the promotion of Deadpool 2, he decided to offer Mr. Beckham a formal apology. The video opens with Beckham on the couch watching the hurtful punchline unfold. Deadpool immediately texts him to apologize before showing up at Beckham's door with a variety of apologies, including a mariachi band and a handful of balloons. Deadpool finally wins Beckham over with tickets to the World Cup. Beckham plays the whole thing off as if he didn't know what Deadpool was apologizing for. He then lists off a number of failed Ryan Reynolds roles, from Green Lantern to Blade Trinity to R.I.P.D. as things he thought Deadpool might be apologizing for. Maybe the friendship wasn't mended, but hey, at least Deadpool tried, and that's gotta count for something, right?
Boltneck.
Boltneck was a masterpiece!
How about it, Screen Ranters? Did you know about these behind-the-scenes stories? What are some of your favorites? Are there any that we missed? Stop by the comments to let us know, and make sure you're subscribed to stay up to date with all our great content.